I keep telling Gelt, man, he needs to stop opening the random puzzle boxes from hell he finds lying around the Altdorf School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Every time he solves one of those creepy little puzzles, a bunch of horn dog demonettes come seeking pleasure and pain. Starting to think he's doing it on purpose. Taste gold magic and all that. We got a clan war today, should I say civil war. Training match between ODM Alfredino and the Grand Duke of Talabek Land, Margrave of the East March, and Beloved of Tal, as Slaanesh and a host of Seekers looks to run down the men of the Empire. Warwagon volley to get things kicked off, splatting a host of Vanguard deployed Nurglings right in their adorable little noggins. Very open battlefield here. I think this is Galbaraz. Good for shooting and good for Cav. The Demons of Chaos side, this majority Slaanesh build is designed to crack open those flanks real fast with the help of the Eternal Entourage. Absolutely absurd stat line, which can further bolster nearby characters with obsessive adoration, so they are meant to be kept close to their keeper, and if they do so, they can rip through just about anything. And the Exalted, whose hips doth not lie, is starting to feel the vibe. Seductive Glory, Lash, and Pavane gives it a bunch of ways to rampage enemy units while it feasts on their fear. If they're routing nearby, it will confer regen, and of course the terror bombing, the bonus for storage, the crazy attack values, and attack speed. There's a lot going for it, but it is a squishy greater demon. In the center, a newcomer has joined the party, the Chromatic Aberrations, a blue horror of Zinch ROR with a bunch more ammo, 360 missile block, and a powerful barrier regen ability that procs anytime a friendly or enemy spell is cast. This unit has a surprising amount of range DPS, and is predictably quite hard to kill because of its barrier regen. On the left flank are the Bringers of Beguilement, Exalted Demonettes designed to rip through armored enemies and cause them to rampage, and 4 regular Seekers of Slaanesh, which have mostly replaced Hellstriders since they were nerfed. Now, if you're an Imperial Knight, this build should be causing you some concern right from the jump, because Seekers, especially when paired with all these rampage tools, are very scary. They're outnumbered and outgunned in the Cav fight, so magic, war wagons, and combined arms with the Free Company will be needed to give those Knights of Mormidia a puncher's chance. And this is one of those difficult things about playing versus Demons of Chaos. You really don't know how they're going to build ever, so you kind of got a game plan for everything. Thankfully, Gelt is always a solid choice for demons. Staff of Volan, Searing Doom, and Final Transmutation can shut down blobbing on a flank if those Seekers get too aggressive, alongside a front line of swordsmen and a back line of Free Company militia. So, right from the jump, Alfredino is going to try and overload the left flank using his superior mobility. Nurglings, 2 Seekers, and the 2 Exalted Daemonette RORs, all sprinting towards the Cav contingent, trying to force out an early fight with their Vanguard deployment. If you're the Empire here, I think you want to delay that Cav fight for as long as possible, and only relinquish the engagement after the war wagons have caused some pain, and the Free Company are in position to support. If it was just the 4 Seekers, could probably afford to get more aggressive with the Cav, but the extra support from the Greater Demon, especially those 2 elite Slaaneshi RORs, really makes an early Cav fight somewhat unpalatable. But there's 2 separate flanks he has to worry about, because there's 2 additional Seekers on the other side, on the Imperial left, the Slaaneshi right, also worming their way around the edge into the Free Company militia and the isolated Imperial Knight out on that side. So it's kind of a catch-22 here. One of the flanks is going to be woefully underprepared for the amount of aggro coming its way. I think the Vanguard elements might have caught the Empire a little bit unprepared at the start here. Ideally, there'd be a line of Free Company and wagons warding off the Seekers, and the Cav just camping behind them while the swordsmen beat down the Nurglings. But it looks like an early Cav fight is indeed going to be the opening development, and the Demons of Chaos aren't giving the Empire much choice here. Really nice reaction from Balthazar Gelt, though. Big time on the Searing Doom, taking out a Seeker right at the start. That unit will crumble out entirely. On the left flank, though, that double Seeker should have free reign to run over the Imperial Knights, even 1v1, but especially if they get around, maneuver for a rear charge, that fight will be over very quickly, and I think the Empire is going to have a hard time over on that side. Very nice Pavane of Slaanesh from the Keeper of Secrets will rampage the Imperial Knights on the right flank, and this is about to get ugly for the Mounted Warriors of Reichland. Knights of the Blazing Sun are soon to be completely overwhelmed by the arrival of the Eternal Entourage, the Bringers of Beguilement, and the Keeper of Secrets. Imperial Knights on the other side also being run down, and this is why diagnosing an opponent's army right at the start of the match is so important, and why Vanguard deployments can screw with that, because it simply gives you less time to collect your thoughts and figure out where your disadvantages lie. The support was not bad, but it was not enough, and we're going to see if the Empire can crawl their way back into it, but losing all that cav is definitely going to hurt. They have plenty of advantages elsewhere, though. Free Company are generally quite decent versus Daemonettes and their low armor. Gelt is untouchable, still dropping Searing Dooms, and probably gearing up for a final transportation soon, and Swordsmen will easily handle Nurglings. So just because the Cav kind of got run over here, they dealt some damage back. Some of them may return. I'm not sure if the Seekers will decide to run them off the map or not, but they did deal some damage back to them, and the Searing Dooms are certainly going to thin out some of the Daemonette numbers as well. And one thing the Demons of Chaos really have to worry about here is getting too blobby with their Cav. It can be kind of a common play with them because they're so fast and you're so used to their armor piercing ripping through anything. You want to put them into this critical mass where all the units are attacking something at once. Problem with that is that if a final transportation hits you, your Cav blob is just going to disintegrate, especially because it'll bypass all that physical resist, and we know Daemonette Cav is not very tanky. So as they charge the Free Company militia, looks like Gelt may be gearing up for something real spicy. Nurglings fighting these swordsmen, using their little ball animations and turning into little gremlin goobers, forming Booger Voltron and generally behaving like the little nuisances you'd expect. Do love me some Nurglings. They're childish and adorable, except for the Plague. Lash of Slaanesh to disrupt the Free Company. Final Transmutation hitting the Keeper and his Eternal Entourage, so it's going to be an immediate 800 plus value, hitting the two most important units on the demonic side, and the War Wagons are still alive, which is huge for the Empire. They will be needed. Question is for how long though, because Seekers are screaming in from the other flank now, and there are no nets or slows to pin them down. War Wagons can fire when they are tied up in melee, which is good for them. Problem is they're not going to survive in melee for very long against all the armor piercing from those Seekers, so they need some help, and fast. They're not quick enough to get away from Seekers all by themselves. They need something to block those charges. That will come down to the Swordsman or the Free Company, because Gelt cannot afford to land. He will die if he gets surrounded by any of these Daemonette Cavalry. Knights of the Blazing Sun did come back. They saw they were in danger and tried to escape, but they rampaged, and that has happened 2 or 3 times this battle. That's been part of the reason why that fight was so lopsided in the favor of Slaanesh. The units that could have cycle charged just weren't able to. They were forced to get tied up and fight it out, and now they're routing, and that should be the end of the mobility game for the Empire outside the War Wagons themselves. But now that the Keeper closed into melee, War Wagons aren't around for long either. And it looks like Seekers try to run the majority of them off the map. That is where the Demons are putting the majority of their focus now, getting rid of all the speed on the Imperial side. Then they can isolate that infantry. You can see that that's reflected a little bit on the balance of power right now. Slightly in favor of the Demons of Chaos, but this is not over by a long shot because the Swordsmen and the Free Company are duking it out, and there's still a lot of them on the field. Seekers low. Eternal Entourage are low. Thing with Seekers, thing with all Heartseeker Cavalry in general, they hit so hard, but even when they take great engagements, they're still going to lose a lot of their models. They're going to lose a lot of their HP. So toss anything like a Final Transportation their way, you're going to see the effects of it, and those Heartseekers are down to about 1/5, 1/6 their original health value. Interestingly enough right now, Chromatic Aberrations are full HP. They have been swimming in barrier, swimming in that overshield, and as the Keeper Seekers drops another Lash of Slaanesh, which have been on point all game long, continuously disrupting the Free Company militia and blasting down their health bars. The Chromatic Aberrations are still full health, and they can probably beat Swordsmen in melee now too. They shoot like pink horrors, and they can probably melee about as effectively as well, because they're going to have the majority of their health remaining after blasting anything that comes into range. And we'll see with these volleys here. Straight into swordsmen who have shields, and at least an okay-ish armor. Well, I mean, 30 armor is not a lot of armor, but they have that missile block chance up front. That was 800 damage in the first volley, and they'll do upwards of 1,200 into the flank or unshielded side of a swordsman unit. So after 2 volleys, and we just saw they're shooting pretty fast too, even still shooting in melee. Yeah, I mean, the swordsmen are down to 1/3 health. They're not going to be able to beat any of these Chromatic Aberrations in CQB. In fact, they're not even going to be able to get rid of their overshield before they rout. So that unit is doing a lot for the Demons of Chaos right now. It's a Slaaneshi-themed build, but a Tzeentch unit is one of the stars of the show. Final Transportation overcast into the Eternal Entourage and that Exalted Keeper Seeker from Balthazar Gelt up top. Another Lash of Slaanesh ripping through the flank of those swordsmen, but the Keeper is real low. The Exalted Seekers about to crumble out entirely. Bringers of Beguilement are real low too, and the final unit of Seekers of Slaanesh also on their last legs. So Empire still in this one. They don't have a lot left on the field, but neither do the Demons of Chaos. And this is one of those games where if any leadership gets sniped out, it could be a mass rout or crumble city. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of crumbling on the Daemonette side. Seekers are gone now. I believe that's the last cav unit for the Demons of Chaos. Bringers of Beguilement are still a big issue though, because they have decent leadership and obviously they will shred pretty much anything in CQB. Free Company have no hope. They're going to be bisected, dismembered, and otherwise decapitated by the ravaging claws of these brilliant beauties. I want you to crunch me with your claws, and I want you to do it now. And Alfredino's actually being very smart here too with his Keeper of Secrets. He is using that Feasting on Fear ability to continue regenning rather than risk having it get sniped out by an unlucky Free Company volley or anything like that. So the Keeper of Secrets is continuing to put pressure on the swordsmen, routing them towards the edge of the map and getting a bigger cushion on his health bar so that if Gelt comes in for a duel in a late game scenario, he's not going to be caught flat-footed and just get immediately crumbled after 1 or 2 hits. Gelt's still full HP, but he is not a good duelist on Quicksilver. He's not a good duelist on foot either. Gelt's just not a good duelist. Really what you get out of him is just unsnipeability when he's astride his Pegasi. And now is the time of the Chromatic Aberrations, because that is probably the biggest threat on the field remaining for the Empire. These things still have ammo. It has 16 ammo. I think regular Blue Horrors have what? 5? Maybe? Like 3 to 5, something like that. They're almost more like precursor javelins. They just don't have much ammo, but these guys do. They fight more like Pink Horrors, but Pink Horrors that have continuous regen and missile block chance in a 360-degree arc. So, yeah, that's a good shooting unit for sure. And they're good in melee too, because as long as you're spamming those cheap spells like Lash of Slaanesh, you are constantly regenerating their barrier, and that makes it so hard to kill them in melee. And they can just tarp it for a really long time and blast you apart. And I've seen volleys this game where those Blue Horrors got, what, like 1,000, 1,200 damage in a shot against swordsmen. Really good. They were great this game. I wouldn't call them MVPs because that would probably come down to the cavalry on the Slaaneshi side, but they ended up with 206 kills against swordsmen, which is very impressive. So I like the build a lot from Alfredino here. And again, this is one of the things that makes fighting Demons of Chaos so difficult. They could go bunch of Fleshhounds. They could go Seekers of Slaanesh. They could go full mobility, full aerial duel. They could shoot you to death. There's a lot of mixing and matching they can put in to practice with a build. And in this one, it was mostly about the cavalry, and it was microed extremely well. There's one Seeker at the start. They got kind of wrecked in the initial engagement by that Searing Doom and by the combined charges of Knights of the Blazing Sun and Imperial Knights. But after that, the use of Rampage, the Pavane of Slaanesh, and the Keeper of Secrets charging in to reinforce helped out tremendously. He overloaded the Imperial right flank, collapsed in, surrounded the war wagons on both sides, took them off the field, and when it was only the swordsmen and Free Company left, and all the mobility for the Empire was gone, makes it very difficult for them to come back because that Keeper of Secrets, once it terror routes something, which it's very adept at doing, it will then feast on fear, get that regen, and gear up for a late game duel, which Gelt simply cannot win. So I like the ideas from the Empire here. I think the build was fine, definitely one that he could win with. Just needs to be careful about taking that early cav engagement. I think if he rolls back that cav earlier, gets them behind Free Company and the safety of the war wagons, he'll be in much better shape to take that battle.